The moon hung heavy in the sky, casting pale silver light over the grand estate of Chief Adetayo. It was a home built on wealth, power, and secrets. Inside the mansion, Tunde Adetayo sat in the lavish living room, sipping a glass of wine. He was a handsome man, the pride of his family, and soon to be married to the beautiful Yemi, the daughter of a respected judge. The wedding was only a month away, yet something in his heart felt unsettled. "You're late," a soft voice whispered from the staircase. Tunde turned his head. His mother, Lady Morayo Adetayo, stood in a silk robe, her skin glowing in the dim light. Her beauty was ageless, her elegance unmatched. But there was something else, a hidden fire between them, a bond too strong, too deep. "I had to meet with Yemi," Tunde said, standing up, his voice careful. "She's starting to ask too many questions." Morayo smiled, walking towards him, her delicate fingers brushing against his hand. "She's a smart girl," she murmured, "but she won't find out anything unless you make her." Tunde exhaled, his chest tight. "I love her, Mama," he said, almost like a plea. Morayo's fingers traced the side of his face, a touch lingering. "And yet, you always come back to me," she whispered. Yemi sat on her bed, staring at her phone. Tunde had left her house late, and once again, she had that strange feeling, the feeling that there was something he wasn't telling her. He was close to his mother, too close. She had noticed the way they looked at each other, the way he always answered her calls immediately, no matter where he was. A grown man, yet he clung to his mother like a boy lost in the dark. She scrolled through her pictures, stopping at one she had taken last week. It was a simple photo, her, Tunde, and Lady Moreo at a family dinner. But now, as she stared at it, she noticed something strange. The way Morayo's hand rested lightly on Tunde's thigh. The way Tunde leaned just a little too close. It made her heart pound with unease. "Am I imagining things?" she whispered to herself. Her best friend Kemi had warned her before. "There's something off about them," Kemi had said. "A mother's love is strong, but this one, it feels unnatural." Yemi shook her head. She didn't want to believe it, but deep inside, a tiny voice whispered, "Look closer." The night was quiet, too quiet. Yemi parked outside the Adetayo estate. She sat in her car, staring at the grand estate, her hands gripping the steering wheel. She had told Tunde she was at home, but something had pushed her to come here, to see for herself. Then she saw them. Tunde stands beside his mother, Lady Morayo, in the dim glow of the room. Their bodies close, their eyes locked. A slow, knowing smile plays on Morayo's lips. Tunde and his mother, standing side by side, staring at each other like lovers do. Yemi's breath catches. Her pulse spikes. Her hands tremble on the wheel. "No, this can't be real." Then, "No, this is not possible," she told herself. But deep down, she knew the truth. Tunde's head turns. His sharp gaze locks onto her car. His expression darkens. He knows she's watching. For one agonizing second, they stared at each other. Neither moved, neither spoke, but Yemi knew. The air crackles with silent tension. Then Tunde steps forward. Her body reacted before her mind could. Her foot slammed onto the gas. Tires screech. The car jerks forward, kicking up dust and gravel as she speeds away into the night. She didn't look back. She couldn't. Because now, she knew the truth. And the truth was more terrifying than she could ever imagine. Yemi locked herself in her bedroom, her body curled on the floor. She had lost track of time. Minutes, hours, she didn't know. The night outside stretched endlessly, pressing against the windows like an intruder. Her mind was screaming, Tunde, his mother, their secret. She squeezed her eyes shut, But the images wouldn't leave her. Tunde's hands on his mother's waist, the way he looked at her. This is beyond closeness. This is something unnatural, something evil. A sharp knock on her door made her jump. Yemi? Tunde's voice. She sucked in a breath, pressing her back against the wall. Number, not now. Not yet. Yemi, I know you're awake, he said softly. Open the door. A pulse pounded in her ears. She couldn't face him, not after what she had seen. Yemi, he called again. Please, talk to me. His voice was calm, warm, like nothing was wrong, like he hadn't been in his mother's arms just hours ago. A new feeling crept into Yemi's chest. Fear. She had seen his secret, and now he knew she was acting differently. The door handle rattled. Yemi, he said again. A pause, then a softer voice. You don't have to be afraid. Her blood ran cold. Outside the door, Tunde sighed. I love you, Yemi, he murmured. I hope you never doubt that. The floor creaked as he stepped away. She stayed frozen until his footsteps faded. Yemi barely slept that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw them, Tunde and his mother, wrapped in something dark, something unnatural. By morning, her body was heavy with exhaustion, but her mind was sharper than ever. She needed answers, she needed proof, and she knew exactly where to start. She grabbed her phone and called Kemi. Kemi, I need you, she whispered. Her best friend didn't ask questions. I'm coming. 30 minutes later, they sat in Yemi's car, parked a short distance from the Haditayo estate. The air between them was thick with tension. Tell me everything, Kemi said. Eyes locked on Yemi's face. Yemi swallowed hard. I saw them, Kemi. I saw Tunde and his mother together. Too close. Kemi's face twisted in shock. What do you mean, too close? Yemi's fingers dug into her lap. He was shirtless. She was in a robe. The way they touched, she shook her head. Kemi, it wasn't normal. Silence filled the car. Then Kemi cursed under her breath. I knew something was off about them, she muttered. The way she looks at him, the way he obeys her like she owns him. But this is insane. Yemi clenched her jaw. I need to know how long this has been happening. I need to know if I've been a fool this whole time. Kemi was quiet for a moment. Then she took a deep breath. You said you need proof? Yemi nodded. Kemi grabbed her phone. Then let's find it. Later that evening, Yemi and Kemi returned to the estate, this time with a plan. Kemi had a cousin who worked in security. With his help, they had found a way to access the CCTV cameras outside the mansion. Sitting in Kemi's car, they watched the footage on a laptop, scanning through days, weeks of recordings. At first, nothing seemed out of place. Then, wait, Kemi said suddenly. Yemi's breath hitched. On the screen, the front door of the mansion opened, and Tunde stepped out. It was late at night, and he was in nothing but sweatpants. A second later, Lady Morello appeared behind him. She reached for him, her fingers trailing down his back in a way that sent a shiver through Yemi's spine. Then he turned, facing her. They stood too close, too long. Then she kissed his forehead, her lips lingering. But it wasn't a mother's kiss. It was something else. Yemi's stomach twisted. Kemi sucked in a sharp breath. Oh my God. The video ended, but the image burned into Yemi's mind. This wasn't just a suspicion anymore. It was real. Her fiancé was in love with his own mother. Yemi didn't go home that night. She couldn't. Instead, she drove straight to the only person who could give her answers. Chief Aditayo, Tunde's father. By the time she arrived at his private residence, it was nearly midnight. The old man looked surprised to see her but let her in without question. What brings you here? At this hour, my dear? Chief Aditayo asked, his voice calm, but his eyes sharp. Yemi sat across from him, her hands clenched in her lap. I need to ask you something, she said, her voice steady despite the storm raging inside her. Chief Adetayo leaned back in his chair, watching her carefully. Go on. Yemi took a deep breath. It's about Tunde and his mother. At those words, something flickered in the old man's eyes. Something dark, something knowing. He didn't speak, didn't blink. Then slowly he exhaled. I was afraid you'd find out, he said. Yemi's heart stopped. She stared at him. So it's true? Chief Adetayo closed his eyes, rubbing his temples. Then he looked at her, and his next word shattered everything. Morayo was never just his mother. Yemi felt the blood drained from her face. She gripped the arm of the chair, her body frozen in shock. What? What do you mean? She whispered. Chief Adetayo sighed deeply, his old eyes heavy with something between pain and regret. Morayo was never just his mother, he repeated. Because Tunde is not my son. Yemi's breath hitched. The walls of the room seemed to close in. She shook her head. I don't understand. If he's not your son, then whose is he? Chief Adetayo stared into his glass of whiskey, swirling it slowly. Tunde is Morayo's son from another man, a man she never wanted me to know about. He paused, his voice lowering, and she was never supposed to have him. A chill ran down Yemi's spine. What are you saying? Chief Adetayo took a long sip of his drink, then set the glass down with a soft clink. Morayo was my second wife. When I married her, I thought she was barren. She swore to me that she could never have children, that she had tried in the past and failed. I believed her. He gave a bitter chuckle. But one day, she disappeared for nearly a year. No one could tell me where she went. When she returned, she had a baby in her arms. Yemi's heart pounded. She told me the child was mine, Chief Adetayo continued. But I knew the truth. I knew she had gone to find an old lover, and that the child was his. Yemi gasped. And you still took them in? Chief Adetayo's face darkened. I was a powerful man, Yemi, a chief. I could not allow such a scandal. So I raised Tunde as my own, but I never loved him. I never saw him as mine. Yemi swallowed hard. And what about Morayo? How did she treat him? At that, Chief Adetayo's face grew tight, his fingers gripping the armrest. Like a possession, he said quietly. Like something that belonged only to her. A wave of nausea rolled through Yemi's stomach. It all made sense now. The way Morayo looked at Tunde, the way Tunde acted around her, like a man bound by something deeper than loyalty, like a man in love. Chief Adetayo leaned forward, his eyes sharp. Tell me, Yemi, what did you see? Yemi hesitated. Her body shook as she whispered, I saw them together, too close. It wasn't normal. Chief Adetayo closed his eyes, breathing deeply. Then when he opened them again, there was something dangerous in them. I knew this day would come, he murmured. Yemi's skin prickled. What do you mean? Chief Adetayo stood up, walking toward the window. He stared out into the dark night, his voice low and cold. Morayo is dangerous, he said. She always has been, and if she knows you've seen what she's been hiding. He turned back to Yemi, his eyes filled with warning. She will not let you walk away. Yemi left the house in a daze, her mind spinning. Her fingers shook as she gripped the steering wheel. She needed to think. She needed to... Her phone rang. She flinched, staring at the screen. Tunde. Her chest tightened. For a long moment, she didn't answer. Then slowly, she pressed the phone to her ear. Hello? She said, keeping her voice steady. There was silence. Then a soft chuckle. Yemi, my love, Tunde's voice whispered through the speaker. Her stomach twisted. I've been looking for you, he said, his tone gentle but laced with something dark. Yemi gripped the steering wheel tighter. I needed some hair. Another chuckle. Air? Tunde repeated. Orhan says. Her blood ran cold. Tunde sighed softly. Come home, Yemi. A lump formed in her throat. I come home, he repeated, firmer this time. Then a pause, and in the softest, deadliest whisper, he said, Before my mother comes looking for you. The line went dead. Yemi's hands trembled. Her heart pounded, and in the darkness of the night, she realized one terrifying truth. She was no longer just a fiancé. She was now a threat.